Okay, guys, very welcome back to the show. And today I've had a very, very special guest on the show today, a man who's has an extensive career in the wrestling business, Mr. Buck Quartermain. Pleasure to have you on the show. Highly
Pleasure's
recommended
all
from Chris
mine.
Nelson.
Pleasure's all mine. Appreciate you having me here this afternoon or this
Yeah.
evening. I think it's
And,
evening over there and
yes.
across the pond.
Yes, it's 9:45 p.m. here now at the moment. So this is when I get my work done when my kids are asleep. So this is my time.
Yeah, how old are your kids?
2 and 4.
Bless your heart. That's awesome. That's before you know it, they're going to be 15 and 18. So enjoy it, please.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already kind of flying by even at that stage, you know.
And before you know it, you'll be 55, champ.
Oh fuck. Look,
yeah.
the boring question I always ask people at these things is like, how did you decide that you wanted to get into the wrestling business?
Man, you want the shoot version or you want the non-shoot version? I'll tell you that if you want the shoot version, it's pretty interesting. So I
Go for it.
I went to college and I came home from college, and I don't know how it is anywhere else in the world, but usually in Tampa, Florida, you go to college and you come home and you don't have a lot of things to do. I didn't have an education, so I kind of wandered into the legal pharmaceutical stuff. And one of my customers was, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but was a wrestler. And he was always, man, you'd really make a really good wrestler. And I was like, man, I'm not a wrestler, dude. I'm a football player. And I was traveling around the state trying to go to as many combines as I could to try to make a career out of professional football. But I was white, 5'8", 178 pounds, and I could run with the wind, but I was just a little short guy. But I ended up one day I just caved in and went to a show and sat there and watched it. And I've been a fan all my life, but I wasn't a fan after probably when I got in college. I was always a fan of whatever I was playing. If I was playing football, I was a big fan of football. Baseball, I was a baseball fan, so on and so forth. But I went to a wrestling show, and before you know it, they were passing out the Monster Factory. Not a big fan of the Monster Factory, but that's who I started with, and I went to the tryout, and I was hook, line, and sinkered after the tryout. So that was my that was my entry, how I got into professional wrestling. I never, I always watched it when I was a kid, but I never visioned myself being a professional wrestler. One reason was because I was, 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", whatever it is I am. Probably lost a couple inches after surgeries, but I never envisioned myself being a professional wrestler because I never wrestled in high school. So I thought they kind of went hand in hand. But lo and behold, 29 years later, I did all right, I guess.
Yeah. Can you talk to me about that training process? Because you touched that you used to play football. Like, so what was the
Right.
training process like back then for wrestling?
Well, it's I don't know how it is for anybody else, but I only went to school for, I think it was either 4 or 6 weeks. I got in a big argument with Larry Sharp. He came down to check on the school because he wasn't running it in Tampa. He had some other guy named, I think it was Ron Slinker. It was really more of it's kind of a joke, to be honest with you. But that's where I ended up starting at, and I got in a big argument with Larry Sharp, and I only trained for I think it was either 4 or 6 weeks. But it was the head trainer at the time was Jimmy Del Rey, Jimmy Backlund, rest his soul. And it was grueling. It was probably the hardest thing I ever did. I mean, I played 17, 18 years of football, other than the running and stuff like that with football. But the wrestling was brutal. We'd start every practice off with 100 Hindus and 10 bumps. And then we do another 100 Hindus and another 10 bumps. And then so on until we got to 500. And then we did, arm drags, and then we did hip tosses, and then we did, and then before you know it, we're putting all that stuff together. And it was crazy, man. It was, you're grinding for an hour and a half, 2 hours in the ring and bumping all over the place. But that the bumping aspect, I kind of took it natural. I mean, the first day of my wrestling career, I got power bombed, I got body slammed, I got suplexed, and I got superplexed off the top rope. All in the first day, within like the first hour. Because when I took my first bump, I'd already known how to take in a bump because I took a tactical class when I was bouncing in bars, and they taught us how to fall. And it's basically a judo fall. Slap the mat, hit the mat. Everything needs to go in unisons. So you just disperse the energy outward. And the first time I took a bump, and they were like, "Oh my God, have you done this before?" I was like, "No, I've never been a wrestler before. I told you guys I'm a football player." And it was it was kind of cool, but I was hook, line, and sinker the first day. Yeah, crazy day, crazy day.
I have a question here from my colleague Jack, and I don't really know much about this, but he said, "How did you come to sign with the Toronto Agronauts of CFL, and did you enjoy playing in the league?"
I it was a different, it was wide open. It was a little slower because the field's bigger. It's not as congested. Took me a while to get used to it. I was only there for a cup of coffee. I wasn't there that long because I got hurt again with my knee. And it just, I enjoyed it, but it was a different brand of football than what I was used to. The fields are wider and longer. There's a lot of motion. Everyone's running. There is no illegal procedures or anything like that. But I mean, I played football for so many years that it almost came natural, second nature to me. I enjoyed it, but getting hurt sucks more than anything else.
So when you first started wrestling, then you were mostly in the Florida circuit. Was it like, what was it like back then in Florida?
Um, uh, it was, so I came in like towards the ass end of the Florida Championship Wrestling era. There was a bunch of guys that were still kind of grinding. A couple guys that got signed with WWF or WWE at the time. So there were a lot of guys that were working for FCW were working for WCW at the time. There was probably six or seven outlaw independent um, companies, but it's the same. I don't know how it is up anywhere else in the country, if not the world, but it's two hot dogs, a Mountain Dew, and $5. That's how I started. It kind of sucks, but because I got into wrestling, I didn't know anything about the money aspect. I mean, of course, you see Dusty Rhodes when you're a kid driving a nice Cadillac, or you see the guys around Florida that wrestled that were living a pretty good life. I got into professional wrestling to sign autographs for kids because I used to love to see the smile on their faces. I had no idea of the money aspect of it, and so I was kind of, you know, when they told me, here's $5 and two hot dogs and a Mountain Dew, I was like, really? This is it? So, but at the end of the day, when you love something, it doesn't matter whether you go to work as a doctor or a teacher. When you love something that much, it's the money's second nature.
Mm. How did you end up making your appearance then on WCW syndicated television?
WCW. So that was the second company I worked for. WWF was WWE was the first company I worked for. The way that I got into WCW was through Fidel Castro, David Sierra. He was doing the Florida talent. So he called me up one day and asked me if I was interested in going doing some handsome work up there, and I was like, yeah. What's of course the money at this time
Yeah.
is kind of intertwining with whether you're going to starve or not. So he was like, yeah, you make this much money, but the bad thing is it's not like WWE. You don't get paid that night. You have to get a paycheck. And I was like, man, that kind of sucks. Drive all the way up to Atlanta. We used to do a loop. We go up there, wrestle, and then turn around and come home 90% of the time. So it was a really long 26 hours. I mean, I didn't make a lot of money up there at all. I mean, I only made like in between 150 to $200 a night. But the locker room was a little bit easier than it was over at the other company in WWE. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in WWF, then you made your debut in 1994, wasn't it, against the Heavenly Bodies?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, that was with Tom Pritchard and Jimmy Del Rey. Yeah, Jimmy had the Florida bookings for WWE at the time, and so that kind of helped me a little bit. I like to think that I got up there because of my talent, but this business is kind of like who you know. So I always appreciated what he did for me to get me up there, But to be quite honest, and call a spade, not very many people in my wrestling career, other than a couple people, really helped me. So I kind of grinded myself, and I didn't really have a lot of people in my corner because at the end of the day, this business is, you got to take care of yourself first. So I didn't like. That's the only aspect of the business I really didn't like. Nobody. I was never inferior of another wrestler going out in front of me or behind me or whatever. But there's a lot of guys in this business, they're worried about their job every day, and I never worried about it. I just went out there and did what I was taught and what I learned, and let the chips fall where they may be.
Yeah, you touched on the different locker rooms there. Was there a different vibe then in WWF compared to WCW, and what was that? Oh, the Undertaker got him. I think he's probably after getting a phone call there, guys. So we'll be back with us in a minute. Just to let you know, guys, coming up next week, we have Kevin Thorne on the show next week and the returning Mario Mancini show. Just I wait for Buck to come back into the stream. Yep, he's gone there, guys. So bear with me and we will have him back ASAP. Yep, so next week we have Kevin Thorne. Kevin Thorne coming on the show next week, next Wednesday evening, for a 1.5 hour special with Kevin. So what we're going to do is we're going to deep dive into Kevin's career for 1 hour, and then for the last half an hour of the 90-minute show, we are going to have on ex-WWE writer and See No Evil writer and director Dan Madigan. And Dan's going to come on and talk to us about the creation of the Mordecai character. I just have Book back here now again. Here we go.
Hey!
I think welcome back. I was just doing a bit of filler. I was doing a bit of filler there.
Man, listen, I'd like to say I had to go to the bathroom, but shit, I'm just an idiot when it comes to computers, man. That's all it is. Shit.
I bet. Was it a phone call?
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it alone this time. I won't touch the son of a bitch this time. I swear to God.
We were just about to touch on the nature of the locker room then in the WWF.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a bunch of prima donnas at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You got the Steiners and Flair and a bunch of Harlem Heat and all those guys were back then, and then WCW and then WWF or WWE. You got I was on the way out, but Brett was there, Sean was there, Diesel was there. You got a bunch of guys that the way that I saw it is that everyone was struggling or jockeying for positions, and to me that it's just it didn't sit well with me. It's because it's a very political business. It's and they're all juggling for the top spot. But that's not how I I would like to say play, but it's not really play. That's not business to me. You know what I mean? When you go up there and you're inferior of your job every day, that's not a good place to work at. And I saw that in a lot of the locker rooms that I was in, and it's just I mean, like I said, I was never inferior of any other athlete. I mean, I played against guys at basketball, against guys that were 7'4". I played against guys that ran low 4.4s, low 4.3s in football, and against baseball players that threw 90 miles an hour. And, you just get up there and try to do the best you can. And in the wrestling business, it ain't got nothing to do with your athletic ability. I mean, great example of that was, Lex Luger couldn't wrestle his way out of a wet paper bag, but he had a $1
Yeah.
million body. You know what I mean? He got out there and he made lots of millions of dollars. And then you got guys, like Freedom Rider and Black Nature Boy and Scooter and all those guys that
Yeah.
wrestle circles around him. That we made pennies on the dollar when it came to stuff like that. So I mean, I enjoyed it. I like to wrestle in front of I like to entertain people and the fans and stuff like that. But I didn't like the business side of it, because when you're playing football, baseball, basketball, or something like that, you get a camaraderie between the boys and stuff like that because you go to war every night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're at war with everybody in the locker room when you're in a professional wrestling. And that's not cool. It's cool when
Yeah.
you go out and you have beers with everybody, and you do your thing and you party a little bit and you have fun, but guys are just turning around and stabbing you in the back, and it's just you get used to it after a while because that's what you got to do. But the best part of the wrestling business is when you're in the ring. You know what I mean?
There is a fan question come in for you here. I wonder if Buck can talk about defeating the Brooklyn Brawler in a dark match in the 1995 Royal Rumble. There you go. People
I
know
tell you,
everything.
I'll tell you this story. So I get a call. Jimmy says, "Hey, do you want to wrestle at the Royal Rumble?" And I said, "Well, of course I want to wrestle at the Royal Rumble." He says, "Well, you're going to be the dark match. You're going to wrestle against the Brooklyn Brawler, Steve Lombardi, and we'll give you. I think I made $500 that night, which is pretty awesome for me. I mean, I'm used to making
Yeah.
$20 in Tampa, so I was overwhelmed. Long story short, I come to find out I was my second choice because Mark Starr, who had, not recently, but, I think back in 12 has passed away. Mark Starr, awesome wrestler. He was a grinder too, had a small contract with WCW and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, going over there and wrestling in front of my hometown, and, I think there was probably 14, 16,000 people there at the beginning of the night, having them cheer my name. That's pretty spectacular for me. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was fun. It was, it's. I'll tell you a story. We're working the match, and Lombardi calls us a spot, and he calls a body slam off the top rope, and I said okay, and he goes, you know what that is, and I went, yeah, I kind of know. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't know what it was, and it's just and those guys, because they work so many different guys throughout the year, they have to ask these like ridiculous questions because it's their
Mm.
life that they're worried about, because they work different guys every night, especially if it's television and they're working different enhancement guys. And, it's just, I was kind of set back and kind of embarrassed. But after, a couple of years, you kind of realize why they have to ask these questions, but no, it was one of the highlights of my career for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever meet the man who's in the news for all the wrong reasons at the moment, Vince McMahon? Did you have any interactions with him over the
Yeah.
years?
So, I'd worked for them since 94, but I
Yeah.
had never really had a conversation with him ever. I always dealt with either an agent or the other guys that were involved in, different levels of the business, but I had never sat down or had a conversation with him. So I would probably say back in 2000, I think I stopped working for them in 2007 as a worker. Yeah, probably 7 or 6, maybe 2006. I was, walking from the ring back to the building or back to the catering section, and he's walking straight at me. And normally I would just say, kind of just give him a nod, hey, Mr. McMahon, and keep on walking. And I grabbed him, kind of gave him a little iggy, and I just said, hey, Mr. McMahon, do you think I can get a couple minutes from you? And I mean, I don't know what made me do this, but I kind of introduced myself all over again. And he goes, Buck, I know who you are. He says, I've known who you were since 94. And I was like, it really means a lot to me. And we sat there, it wasn't anything long, but we talked for about 4 or 5 minutes. And, he told me he appreciated everything I've been doing for him, and just keep grinding, and maybe there might be a spot that opens up. And I took it for face value, and I just kept doing what I was doing, what I enjoyed doing, what I love doing. So, yeah, it was kind of cool meeting, the guy that pretty much kind of leveraged his whole life to make it what it is today. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, kind of anyone that I've ever talked to about Vince, like most people have good words to say about him, and then you see all this crazy shit going on in the news
Yeah.
as well. You know, it's weird.
Yeah, but Vince was the good guy. He got about a bunch of douchebags that work for him, though. Unfortunately, those guys were all the pricks and assholes. And I guess when you're in charge, the way I was taught is you got to be an asshole sometimes to be in charge, but you don't have to be an asshole all the time. You know what I mean? And
Is
I
that
and I,
is that in reference to one John Laurinaitis?
oh, John Laurinaitis is a douchebag number one. Pat Patterson was douchebag number two. Arn Anderson, he kind of he looked down at me one time, and I guess I was bald headed at the time, and they were in Tampa when he was with WCW, and he looked at me one day when we were all out having beers and stuff like that, and he goes, "Hey kid, we already got one bald headed guy. We don't need two of them." And I looked at him and I went, "Hey, I hate to tell you this, but I was bald headed before Austin was bald headed, and I was cussing out promoters way before Austin was cussing out promoters because this sorry ass business, nobody wants to pay anybody." So he was like, "Oh," and just kind of turned his back and just walked away. And I was like, "Man, what a dick, dude. You don't have to say some shit like that to a guy that's grinding to try to make a living in the wrestling business." It's funny that you say that because I just saw a video um, on TikTok the other day, and it was of Shawn Michaels wrestling the Barbarian. Shawn Michaels got his ass handed to him, and it just proves and shows to everybody in the wrestling world that everybody starts out green. Everybody starts on the mat, and everybody takes an ass whooping. Very few people don't take an ass whooping in this business. Even the guys that are 6'6", 300 pounds, they get beat up a little bit by guys, until they turn around and they start fighting back. But it's just the nature of the business, man. That's how you learn in this business. You got to go out there and you got to get your ass beat every once in a while, and then you stop getting an ass beaten and you start giving it back, So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just the second tier guys after Vince. Just I don't know, man. Johnny Laurinaitis was the biggest lion sack of shit I ever met in my life. And I hate to say that about somebody, but he is a lion sack of shit. He lies to people every day, and that's his whole deal. I got a
Yeah.
story. I got plenty of stories. Not really plenty. I got a couple stories to talk about Johnny, if you want to go into it. But he's just, when
Yeah.
I got hired and fired, it was, it's their contract is not for anybody other than the company WWE. It's not for any of the wrestlers. It's it doesn't matter how much money you sign for. They can fire you within 90 days. It doesn't matter whether you think you have a guarantee. They can fire you within 90 days and put your ass out on the street. And Johnny Laurinaitis, when they hired me, whenever I got my first contract that I ever had with WWE was as a referee. So when they called me up and asked me, do I want to be a referee? I said, absolutely. Why not? I mean, shit, I don't have to take any more bumps. I'm 40 years old. Why wouldn't I want to be a referee? Some of the guys that I know that were referees were making, $250,000 a year, and I not have to wrestle anymore. That would be awesome. Hell, I'd even set the ring up and help the ring crew set it up. That's how much I loved wrestling. Not a lot of people understand that, but that's how much I loved it. But then when I walk into the building and I'm 225, 230, the talent's asking me, "Hey, are you one of the new wrestlers?" I was like, "No, I'm a referee." And they were like, "You're kind of big for a referee." I was like, "Well, I was a worker for 23 years before this, and so on and so forth." And Scott or Pritchard was kind of like the guy for Florida. And every time I would wrestle, or every time I would do a referee match, which when they first came to Tampa, I was the only referee they had. So I was doing 5, 6, 7 matches a night. And
Yeah.
I would always ask Bruce when he came into town, "Hey, is there anything that I need to do different or whatever?" "No, Buck, you're doing just fine." So I'm thinking, okay, if I'm doing just fine, when are you gonna put me on the fucking road so I can start making some fucking money instead of this measly fucking $500 a week that you're fucking paying me? You know what I mean? Teaching people how to wrestle, because not one. I mean, so there was probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 guys, maybe 8 guys at the most, and maybe 2 women that came through FCW in Tampa that knew how to wrestle. I mean, there was guys in there that were making $2,000 a week that hadn't ever been in a wrestling ring a day in day one. So, when I find out after being in the business for 23 years, I'm making $500 and they're making $2,000, when I'm refereeing their matches, I kind of get a little acerbated because they ain't getting it.
Yeah.
And, so, I mean, maybe that was the reason why I got released. I don't know. They tried to tell me that, that I'd failed a drug test, but, you're only supposed to get suspended for a drug test. So, I mean, I was 230 pounds at 5'10". Of course, I was on drugs. I was a professional wrestler at the time. I wasn't ever getting drug tested. But when I got, with the company as a referee, I passed my first drug test, didn't do any more drugs. And of course, my second one comes up, and, it's just very hypocritical business or company. I mean, I never had any issues, maybe because I was never on contract with anybody. But when I got on contract, I thought, I was kind of doing them a favor and they were doing me a favor by giving me a contract as a referee. But it was just shitty the way they did it. And I laughed at Johnny when he Johnny doesn't call very many people back, so I don't know who the guy was that was underneath him that called me to fire me. So I kind of read him the riot act and kind of laughed at him and told him, it's just bad business. And then Johnny calls me back in about 5 minutes later, and he goes, "I'll never forget this in my entire life." He goes, "Well, Buck, maybe you could give it another run in a couple months as talent. I'll never forget this." And I went, "Johnny, why the fuck would you give me a job at 40 when you didn't give me a job when I was in my 30s? So I said, "You're just the biggest piece of shit, dude." And he was just like, "Well, Buck, you never know." And I was like, "Yeah, I do know. I do know. And I get it, you know, but it was just bad business, you know."
Mm.
And Steve Kern was the head, of the facility and stuff like that, the head of developmental at the time. And, I'm sure he had his hands, tied behind his back. And it was just bad business, I didn't. And then all of a sudden, I think during the conversation with Laurinaitis, he said, "Well, you really suck as a referee." And I went, I suck as a referee? I said, "Johnny, let me tell you something, dude. I've been an athlete all my life. I ain't never sucked at anything, dude. So, if I'm asking whoever your top guy is that's coming down here to look at talent, if I ask them every night, do I need to do anything different? And they keep telling me no. Well, fuck, I ain't going to do anything different. I'm just going to keep doing the same shit I'm doing." It was just, and I get it. It's a use you up kind of business, and they used me for what they could get out of me. And then it's just, I don't know. Johnny's a piece of shit, and always will be a piece of shit. I don't hate him because I try not to hate anybody, but I'm just saying, karma's a motherfucker. I'm just saying.
That sounds like a very similar story that Tank Toland. I don't know if you know Tank. He was kind of fired over the phone by Johnny, and he actually
Yeah.
said nearly the exact same thing. The biggest piece of shit he's ever met in his life. So.
So, my mom told me a long time ago when I was a kid, if one or two, three people are saying it, maybe it's you. But if 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 or 30 people are saying it, maybe it's them.
Yes. Fan question: any memories of working with Owen Hart?
Oh, so I tell you my top 4 matches.
Yeah.
The best match I ever had with WWF, WWE was Owen, bar none.
Yeah.
Bar none. I think we did 11 minutes. I think it got cut down to, I think, 4.5. And it was exactly everything everybody says about wrestling. You get in there and you have fun. He messed with me. He rubbed my nipples. He tried to tie my shoes, untie my boots. It was just, I mean, phenomenal. And Lord Jesus Christ got one of the biggest rivers in the business when he got him. And what they say also is that, the good guys die early. And he was a good guy. He was far bar. I mean, he was just a phenomenal, phenomenal person, even outside the ring. I really enjoyed it a lot. But my first three matches at WCW, and I thought I was going to get a job after these. My first one was with Dean Malenko. My second one was with Eddie Guerrero. My third one was with Chris Benoit. Chris and I went 11 minutes, and he let me kick out of three of his finishing moves. We walked through the curtain, and Arn Anderson's sitting there, and he read him the riot act. I can't believe that you let this kid kick out of three of your fucking finishes. That's fucking bullshit. And I'll never forget this one either. Chris stopped him and said, hey, I thought we were supposed to wrestle out there. I said, if I go out there and I beat that kid up for 11 minutes, doesn't make who the fuck am I? I'm just beating up somebody. I said, the kid can wrestle. Why wouldn't we go out there and wrestle? And to this day, that's one of the biggest compliments, second, third biggest compliment I ever got in my entire career. So yeah, it's I thought I was going to get a job after those three matches, but obviously I didn't. So it is what it is.
So were those three matches in your top four then also?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Those, yeah. Owens was probably second. Chris was first. Dean was fourth, and Eddie was third, for sure. Yeah, but I mean, they were all. I mean, I think the shortest time that I had was, I think it was with Dean, when Dean was doing the man of 1,000 moves. I think him and I only worked for about 4 minutes, 5 minutes, curtain to curtain. So it wasn't that long. But all the other guys I got to move in the ring with, and it's like they say, it's poetry in motion with those guys. It was just easy.
Fan question again: why did you have different colored boots?
So I had an American boot and a Japanese boot were my first set of boots, and Jimmy Del Rey let me have those. As a matter of fact, I still have them in my closet. The reason why they were different color is because one of a Japanese flag on it, one had an American flag on it, and he got those when he was going over to, I want to say, FMW over in Japan at the time. So he was over there, so he got some boots made with the Japanese and the American stuff on them. But they're really the same color. They just have different flags on them.
Okay.
Both the boots are actually white, but they have two different flags on them. But I wore the hell out of them, some bitches. I mean, I wore them everywhere, But yeah, and then I wore, of course, I wore the red and white singlet. So that kind of, I guess it kind of helped a little bit.
Yeah. Jack, another question there. Wail on Mercy on Superstar, certainly a unique and memorable gimmick. Any memories?
Oh, Spivey's phenomenal, man. He was light, and he's one of the legit tough guys in the business. I don't know if anybody's ever saw the match with I think it's with Sid Vicious, and they beat up the couple enhancement guys because the guys didn't want to sell for them, because I guess they were kind of bigger, and not bigger, but they were big guys, and I guess they didn't think they needed to sell for those two guys. And yeah, Danny Spivey is a legitimate, tough guy in the business. And when I went out there, of course, when you're only, maybe, I think I was maybe 18 to 2 years in the business. I'm a little nervous, because I know how tough Danny is. Danny's from Tampa as well. So, all the rumors and, tough stuff, I've heard all through my life. And I got out there, and it was, light as a feather, and he's very professional, very, very professional. He took care of me, didn't hurt me. I hope if you ever interview him, I hope he says the same thing about me. I, didn't try to hurt anybody, but no, Danny was just that whole gimmick. I thought it was pretty awesome. You know what I mean? It didn't have to do a whole lot to make it real. You know what I mean? The character, from I guess one was it who not Al Pacino, was what's the other guy? Came from that movie. And I don't know what actor that was, but yeah, he took the gimmick from one of the actors from a movie, psychopath that got out of prison and then went and started killing people on an island or something, or like a little island or something like that. So now Dan Spivey is phenomenal. Of course you can tell by his career. things he's got to do in his career. So yeah, easy.
Yeah. Were you ever in a situation, you touched on it there, where guys may have got beaten up as a shoot? Like a lot of people talk about the Vaders of this world. Was there ever anyone that was rough and tumble with you in the ring?
Well, I don't know about rough and tumble. Mantar, bless his heart, rest his soul, but some bitch couldn't wrestle his way out of a wet paper bag. He was horrible. I hate to say that about a guy that's passed away, but it is what it is. Not he was kind of like Vader. I guess they tried to do the Vader, try to hurt people, and that's not this business, man. This business is to go out there and entertain some people, and go have a couple of beers and move on to the next town. And a lot of guys didn't get that, they just. But he's not good. Brian Pillman kicked me in the mouth. Legitimate kicked me in the mouth, busted my mouth open. Sitting in the locker room, came, sat next to me, didn't say a fucking word to me. Didn't say sorry, hey, my bad, dude, whatever. Didn't say, fuck you, Buck. Just didn't say shit. Just sat next to me, kind of like you. I guess he wanted to see if I was going to do anything. But the way I was taught in this business is, don't go into business for yourself. Don't make any waves in the locker room, because you got to, if you want to come back, that's how it is. But as long as, hindsight 2020, shit, I guess I should have fought somebody. Maybe I would have got a fucking job. I don't know, but I mean, it's just, there was, there wasn't a lot of guys like that, but there was some guys that were, I'm sure they're tough, but I hate to say this, but we're all fucking grown men. To get in this business, you got to be some kind of tough. But that's how it was when I was breaking the business. I don't know how. I haven't been in a locker room for. I think the last locker room I was with, I ran some stuff with my stepson because he got in the business, and I did like 7 matches with him, and I was in his locker rooms for 18, about 18, 17, 18, 2017, 18, and I dare some wrestlers to go to a gym and work out. Just go to the gym. There's all kinds of supplements. You don't have to take steroids or anything like that, but there's all kinds of supplements out there that you can take that you can gain 20 pounds. When I got in the business, man, they told me, hey, man, you got to weigh 200 pounds. And I weighed about 186. I had just come from playing football, so I was about 186, 83, 86. And, I did what I did. I went out and, I found some pharmaceuticals that got me bigger, but they got all kinds of things now that make you gain some weight. But damn, there's guys wrestling that weigh 150 pounds that are, that walk out there like they're 6'4", 350. And I just I don't know. I think the whole wrestling business, I'm sure I know there's definitely some athletes in the business now, but there's a lot of guys that, hey, I want to be a wrestler because I saw it on video games. I don't know how it is now because like I said, I haven't been around a lot, but the rumor is when I got into the business that, if you carried a heavyweight title belt in any territory, they would almost kind of set you up for fights to see whether or not you can handle yourself. And I hate to say this, but a lot of guys that are carrying belts these days, shit, they couldn't beat their sisters up. You know what I mean? And that's what we do. I know it says wrestling on the marquee and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, if you're running a program with somebody, you can only do so much wrestling. You know what I mean? So you got to fight a little bit. And I'll tell you a story about fighting and wrestling and stuff like that. I was up in Deep South, and there was a trainer there, and I think there was probably 30 or 40 people there. And the trainer told me this personally, so I know it's legit. I think there was about 30 or 40 students there. And he stood up and he asked a question. And the question that he asked was this: how many of you guys or ladies have been in a real fight? And not one of them, not one, stood up and said, me. So I took that as, if you ain't ever been in a real fight, how in the hell can you go out there and portray to be in a fight? Because that's what we do in this business. I know I don't like to say fake because there's nothing fake about the wrestling business.
No.
It's a physical soap opera, and we are very physical. Sometimes the shit gets out of hand, but it's not fake. There's nothing fake about the L45 S1 fusion I got in my back, my right shoulder being replaced, and 20 knee surgeries. So don't call it fake. You can call it drama, physical drama or whatever, but I just don't. I don't know. I'm sure there's some tough guys still in the business, but I think the majority of the people that are in it are kids that literally sat around and watched video games and say, "Hey, I want to be a professional wrestler." I'm just saying.
Did you ever have any interactions with Paul Heyman over the years?
You know what? I did. So when ECW would come to Florida, Tommy Dreamer, I guess, Fonzie, Bill Alfonso called me up one day. I guess he got my phone number. I want to say this is probably 02, 03 maybe, and said, "Hey, we're coming into Florida. Would you like to run the loop with us?" I said, "Of course, man. What, are you kidding me?" And I jumped in and I showed up. I'll never forget. I showed up in Sarasota, and I got there early. Like you told me to get there early. I got there probably about 2 o'clock. The show's not. I think bell time's 8, so I got there at 2, and they have the ring set up already. And he says, "Hey, do you mind working out a little bit?" I was like, "No, sure." So I went and grabbed my gear and put my gear on. So I geared up and stuff like that. And I got in the ring I'm not very good with names, so you don't ask me what their names were. But I got in the ring with a girl, and I got in the ring with a guy, and I wrestled each of them for about 10 minutes. And after that, he says, "You want to work tonight?" I said, "Shit, that's why I'm here. Absolutely." So I went out and worked in that whole loop. I worked 3 nights. We did Sarasota, Orlando, and St. Pete, I think it was. And I worked all 3 nights, and I worked Nova. So, it was unbelievable. I thought I was going to get a job. He came up to me, Heyman came up to me and says, "Hey, kid, really good job. Appreciate everything you did." He, gave me $100 a night, which I really, at that time, I probably would have done it for free. You know what I mean? I was just trying to get my foot in the door. But it didn't pan out for me, but I had a really good time with ECW. Now that's my kind of locker room. Everybody on that whole stream of talent. Nobody was trying to cut each other's throat. I mean, there was multiple guys that were on top, at different times. Everybody shared a little bit on top. It was, the guys that worked the first matches were just as important as the guys that were in the middle of the show, and as important as the guy at the end of it. And really, really solid. Unfortunately, it was sad to see, the angle where they went, because they went bankrupt, and, the rumors of Heyman and all that stuff with lenders and stuff like that. But, at the end of the day, it's just another company that was giving people, an avenue to keep wrestling, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. Anyone I've ever talked to that's been in that locker room has just talked about the whole family vibe. That's pretty
Man,
much what it was there.
there's a lot of guys that, that were on contract for that company that weren't even getting paid. They were showing up every night and grinding, and nobody took a night off. Nobody went in there and sandbagged it for 10 minutes or 12 minutes. They all went out there and they worked their ass off, whether it was in front of, I think the smallest house that we had might have been the St. Pete job building. I think the house was probably maybe 800 people, which, in Florida, that's a big house for us. Like Sarasota, I think they did 3,000 people. In Orlando, I think was for the pay-per-view. So I think they did like maybe 3,500, which is huge for Florida, unless it's, with the big company, which I don't understand. Can you guys tell me how the hell can you go sell out Tampa 18,000 people or 40,000 at the damn baseball field, but you can't go support your fucking independent wrestling? It costs $10 Go to an independent wrestling show. Kills me. I don't understand that about people.
We independent wrestling is pretty hot over here in Ireland at the
Well,
moment.
damn, I should have packed my shit up and came over there with you guys. I just don't get it, man. I mean, I get it, man. I do get it. Really, at the end of the day, how good is John Cena when he gets in a wrestling ring? I mean, all this shit that he does out in the stuff is phenomenal, unbelievable, great mic work, all that good shit. But really, his wrestling ability, I mean, you're going to see way better wrestling if you go to an independent show. I promise you, you really are. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, they did well, So I was very fortunate because there was I think I might have been I was probably the only guy that ran that loop in Florida, so I felt honored, because there was a lot of guys that would have liked to have had that spot. And I kind of so after that spot that happened for me, of course, everyone thinks my pay is I'm gonna need more money. I'm gonna get greedy, and that never happened with me. I mean, I wasn't trying to get $200 or $300 a night for wrestling, independent shows. Shit, I was lucky if I made 20, 40, $60. I remember I wrestled over in Melbourne for a company called CCW before CCW down in Miami started, and we used to do TV. Me and a gentleman by the name of Classy Chris Nelson, we would do TV. We do 3 matches a night. We made $60 for 3 matches. I mean, what more kind of grinding is that? When it comes to trying to get your name out, which was nice because it kind of made my career a little bit better. Because it's funny because you say public access and you think of like low rent TV broadcasting, but not over there in Orlando. It wasn't, because it was almost 300,000 people that were watching this TV station. So it was pretty cool. I got out there and we got to, it was kind of, like a small percentage of what, WWE is. And we had TV, we had promos, we had all that stuff that we had to cut and stuff like that. We had our commercials that we were doing and stuff like that. So it was cool.
Yeah. There's a pretty tough looking match on YouTube that I was looking at the other day between you and Steve Blackman. I believe it's from Sunday Night Heat. Was there any story behind that match? It was pretty kind of physical match for you guys.
No, I got my ass beat that night. Now I mean, there ain't really a whole lot of stuff that you can do about getting kicked. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's a karate guy, so they tell you, hey, it might be a little tight. So you just go out there, and I just went out there and did my job. There was come back to the locker room, and everybody's like, man, what the fuck? I was like, it's all good, man. I went over there and shook Blackman's hand and say, you good? Everything's solid? He was like, man, it's perfect. Appreciate everything you did for me. I know the kicks are stiff and shit like that. And I say, it's how it works. It's like getting hit with a chair. I mean, at the end of the day, when you get hit with a chair, it doesn't feel good, but you learn how to protect yourself. And kendo sticks are the same thing. I got my ass beat when I first got into business by a kendo stick, and there's nothing you can do about it. They hurt. Like, again, it's not fake. This business.
Nope. We have lost him, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. We will get him back now as soon as possible. But great guy, great stories there. Been through a lot in the business. Been in the business, as he said, 29 years. And he's got some quality stories there. And we're going to get him back on now. We're going to be wrapping up in the next 10 minutes. So if there's any fan questions there, I will try to get another couple in just before we wind up. So, yeah, really, really cool guests. I'd like to thank friend of the show, Chris Nelson, for getting this man on. So here we go.
I'm back.
You're back. You're back.
I'm a popular person, man. I can't help those phone calls, big dog. I can't help them. Can I say something real quick? I want everybody to look at my shirt real quick. I got to say this. So this is one of my best friends in the whole wide world. It's 50legs.com.org. Check it out. Make donations if you can. He's doing amazing stuff for kids and veterans, getting prosthetics. Check it out, 50legs.org.com. Check it out. He's doing some amazing stuff. Please.
Okay, we're going to take a couple of fan questions and we'll wrap it up shortly at the top of the hour. Any stories on MVP?
Yeah, I just saw MVP. Shout out to Frankie Chiazzo. We went to a service last night, 2 nights ago, and just a little shout out. I saw MVP there. So Antonio Banks. Yes, I got a story for you. How about this? So we're doing the Tampa, Miami, and Jacksonville loop for WWE. I want to say this is, I want to say maybe 2004, 2005, whenever he got hired. I don't know what year that was, but whenever he got hired, we do the Miami spot. We drive up to my house. We stay at my house, get up in the morning. My mom makes us breakfast. bang, we get out, backing out of the driveway. He's got an expedition. We're getting ready to leave to go to Jacksonville. And he goes, Buck, I got to ask you a favor. And I said, what you got, kid? He goes, I want you to listen to this promo that I got. I said, really? I said, what's going on? He goes, I got a promo that Stephanie McMahon asked me to cut for her today. They asked me that down in Miami, and I just want to run it by you first. And MVP and I were talking about this the other night at the service after we went and had a couple of drinks. And he goes, I said, sure. I said, lay it on me. Let me see. Well, what do you got? Let me hear it. And he spits out about 2 minutes of some of the most amazing stuff I'd ever heard in my life when it comes to wrestling promos. Another thing that, I got a lot of things I'll never forget in this wrestling business, and this is one of them. And I looked at him after listening to him cut this promo to me, and I said, Banks, I said, dude, you're going to get a job tonight. He goes, man, you think so? I said, listen, just go in there and do it exactly like you just did it right there. They got to hire you, man. They got to hire you. He goes, man, I appreciate it. So we jumped on the road, and we were, hauling tail up, 3 hours away, and we get there, and, we kind of go our different ways. I go one way, he goes another way, because I know he's got business that he's trying to conduct. And don't say nothing about it anymore. The rest of the night, we do our stuff. We wrestle, and we get paid, and we come home. And I remember probably, I don't know, I want to say maybe a couple weeks later, he called me up and he said, thank you. And I said, what are you thanking me for, dude? So I just want to say thank you for being so honest about that promo. And I said, yeah, I'm going to try to cut it to you straight. I'm not going to, toot your horn if it ain't right. He goes, dude, I got a job. I went, man, that is phenomenal, dude. He says, I got a job because of that promo that you told me to cut. And I cut it just like I told you. And I said, I told you, man. I said, you're in the right spot, the right time. You're exactly what they need. They need someone that can talk. They need, a guy that's an athlete, that can go out there and present all that stuff. And your name that you came up with that whole thing, MVP. I can't even tell you what all that stuff stands for. But it turned out really well for him. And now look at him. I think it's been, I want to say it's been 18 years. I think he's been on the road. He's I want to say he's the second or third longest guy that's on payroll right now. That's been in the company.
Yeah.
And
there was a comment here, 2006, I think he came in there. Yeah.
2006. So he's been up there for, 18 years. And he, last night he grabbed me and gave me a big hug and told me, man, I just want to thank you. I said, man, you ain't got to thank me, dude. You went up there and, you opened, they gave you a little inch to stick your little eyeball through the door. And once you got your eyeball in there, you kicked that bitch down with your boot and you walked in that summit and you did what you were supposed to do and you got a job. And that's it. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I'm so proud of him for sure. That's my story.
Any experiences with Chris Jericho over the years?
I wrestled Chris in Smoky Mountain before he got a job. But I tell you, this is absolutely, it's wrestling related, but it has nothing to do with in a wrestling building or anything like that. I go to a concert one night, a country concert here in town. Show up, we're in, we got us a nice little box and stuff like that. We're VIP and stuff like that, which is, I don't know how I got over there, but I'm there. So in the middle of the auditorium, there's a sound section. And I turn around and I'm looking in the sound section because we're right in front of the stage. And I say, I'll be damned, that's Chris Jericho over there. And I want to say it was Luke Bryant concert. This is just when Luke Bryant was really hot and stuff like that. So I said, well, shit, let me walk over there and say something to Chris real quick. And, Chris and I mean, we were in the locker room for a couple of years, WWE and Smoky Mountain and stuff like that. But I kind of didn't really know if he kind of knew who I was. And, this is, I don't know. So he's been there for a while and, he sees me and stuff like that. And I walk over to him and I say, hey, what's going on, Chris? Hey, Buck, what's going on? And that kind of made me feel good. And we sat there and we talked for about, 10, 15 minutes while the concert was going on and not really talking. We're kind of screaming in each other's ear. And he goes, hey, man, I just want to tell you one thing. And I said, what's that, bud? He goes, I don't understand why you never got a job. I said, well, it is what it is. Just not the right place and not the right time. He goes, no, that's not it. He says, but let me tell you something. I said, what's that? He goes, everybody in our locker room, dude, had nothing but the utmost respect for you when it came to your talent. And I was like, you know what, dude? I said, right then and there, I said, my career has been pretty full at that time. I've been to Japan a bunch of times, and hearing that from Chris about the WWE locker room and stuff like that, that really made me feel really good about my career. And I was pretty, you don't get signed, you get a little depressed, because you work at it for 20 years, and all of a sudden you get hired as a referee, and then you get fired 89 days later. It was kind of depressing. But when I heard that, I was, at the, you know, lowest probably in my wrestling career. And when I heard that, I was like, man, you know what? I'm pretty good with my career now, you know. And I used to tell
Yeah, for
people all the
some,
time when I first started with WWE, the only difference between me and Shawn Michaels was our checking account. He's the same height as I am. We were the same weight, same build, same whatever. Just our checking account was a little different. That's it. Mine was most of the time in the negatives, and his was, plus millions.
yeah. Did he have a chip on his shoulder kind of from early on, Sean?
Sean, shit, all of them had a chip on their shoulder back then, man. Shit, Razor was up there, and Diesel was up there, Sean was up there, I Jimmy was up there, Tom. I mean, all those guys had a chip on their shoulder, and rightfully so. I mean, they were on there, they were the cream of the crop, and they were on top of the world. I mean,
Hmm.
I I hope to think that they didn't think they were better than anybody. I just hope that they are, all the guys that are on contract now. Please don't think that you're better than anybody in this business, because you could be, like they say, you could be in the penthouse one day and the doghouse the next day. It doesn't. It only takes a couple seconds before your career could be completely demolished. So enjoy it while you're there. Don't bitch and moan because you're not on TV. Enjoy what you got, man, because you got to be ready at all times. And I tell people all the time, and the younger guys, you have to be wrestling ready 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in this business, because you don't ever know whether or not they're going to ask you, hey, can you come up to wherever tomorrow? You ain't got no time to go get tan. You ain't got no time to make sure your hair's right. You got to make sure your shit's ready all the time. And, of course, those guys got chips on their shoulders. You know what I mean? But it's a grind, and you deserve it. They deserve it. Yeah.
Chris told me, Chris Nelson, that his biggest payoff was $500 one night for doing that jumping jacks segment. The one he done backstage. Do you know
Yes.
this?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I know of it, but I don't remember. I don't remember the whole spot on that thing, but I do remember
I
the
had
guy.
him. I had him on my show one night. Okay, and we were doing a
Okay.
live show like this,
Yeah.
and the woman that was in the segment with him, I had her pop into the screen,
No
and I had
way.
reunited. Yeah, it was
That's
really cool.
awesome. Oh,
Yeah,
I
should have
bet he
seen
was
his face.
he was probably as red as my shirt is right now.
Yeah, I'll send it to
Yeah,
you later. But what
yeah, absolutely.
my question on that is, did you ever have to do anything random, as in like backstage stuff or anything like that?
You know what? I never had to carry anybody to the ring. I never had to do anything where no, I got,
That's
I don't know if it
amazing.
was lucky. No, I never had to do any of that stuff. I remember, I don't know why. I remember getting to the building one time and Killer Kowalski, I guess he used to put all the enhancement guys through a little drill going out to the ring and stuff like that. So the first time I get up there, he tells everybody that's enhancement, "Hey, we need to see everybody out to the ring. We want to see how you hit the ropes and take a bump." I looked at that son of a bitch and went, "Fuck are you talking about? Hit the ropes and take a bump? We wouldn't fucking be here if we didn't know how to hit the ropes and take a bump." Long story short, not everybody knew how to hit the ring or hit the ropes and take a bump. So I was like, "The fuck am I going to go all the way out there to show you how to do that? I mean, I already know how to do this." And I it was hard sometimes being up there because guys, like, back to the chip on the shoulder. I mean, I don't know. It was funny, but no, I never had to do any of that stuff, man. I guess I never got demoralized or anything like that. So yeah, I got lucky, I guess.
before we wrap up the show, do you think that because of a lot of guys that played enhancement roles back in the day, do you think that their contribution to the business should be acknowledged in some way?
Yes, I think, Hunter, if you're out there watching this, and I'm sure somebody on your team, because I know everybody, not everybody, but everybody that wrestles in this world, whatever's going on with wrestling, somebody in that company has got information or is watching it. So, Hunter, if this gets back to you, there needs to be a spot in the Hall of Fame for two people. One is for enhancement workers, and two is for Brian Adams' crush. So just let that be known. But yeah, definitely enhancement guys definitely need to have a little spot. And, it doesn't have to be a big spot. It just has to be a small spot, like the referees, you know what I mean? Because it during that time and era, I used to tell people all the time, I mean, I am a professional wrestler, but I'm a star maker. I made stars. And I went out there and I took pride in trying to make those guys look good, So, yeah. Hall of Fame, enhancement workers, Brian Crush Adams. Just remember that.
Yeah. Buck, look, I'd like to thank you for your time today. And I think we
You're
only
welcome.
kind of scratched the surface. So we might do a part two of this maybe when you're free again sometime soon.
Absolutely, man. Just give me a heads up. Let me know what's going on. I appreciate you guys having me, man. Um, Peace.
Real pleasure, man. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bubba.